While we're on that kick of depressing ass news, 38 Studios has been shut the F down.
Yeah.
What are you talking about? They're auditing them, and they'll find funding.
There is still technically a company called 38 Studios, but nobody works there.
So last week, the notice that went out to employees, as I saw it, basically said, to keep this company alive, we are firing everyone immediately.
Yep.
This is non-optional, it said. I'm like, wow, well, that's pretty serious. Although I'm not sure how you keep a business.
Little over 379, 380 employees total.
And there's just been, I'm not sure where dust has settled, but
there's been no dust settled. It's just a shitstorm of
a lot of
finger pointing.
There's a lot of snipey back and forth now between Governor Chaffee and now Kurt Schilling, who has actually come out and said something.
Oh, he gave a statement?
Yeah.
It was a full interview with
Providence Journal.
Yeah. It was pretty interesting. Kind of echoes some of the stuff that some of the other guys coming out of there have said about, just like talking about the film tax credits and.
Yeah, basically, like 38 Studios' argument is that they got, or at least like some management, like Schilling, is that they had this film tax credit that then they can go and sell, which was going to allow them to meet payroll, and that they were also close to signing Reckoning 2 with EA, which is going to be $35 million. And that between those two, that would have kept them afloat going towards Copernicus if that actually truly was going to come out next June.
Yeah.
And that the governor, who did not sign this original loan to 38 Studios, decided to play politics with this and kind of go against the 38 Studios guys. So there's a lot going on, but it sort of at the end of the day, if your company was always one step away from going out of business because of one thing, there were structural problems with, you started a studio trying to do the most ambitious thing in video games with an idea that became antiquated by the time it was getting closer to market. And then with a bunch of people that had never done that before. And I was always...
I get the impression that they had pulled in a ton of people who had done it before elsewhere.
From the outset.
A lot of other people with MMO experience working,
but that's
working there.
They hired so many people with MMO experience. That is a lot of employees for a company that has now put out one game under a sub-developer.
Yeah.
That kind of, like, at one point, Harmonix got over 300 people.
Yeah.
And that was because of DLC, multiple platform games, like all this other shit that was going on. But, that bloat had to be cut at some point because there was just no way that was sustainable. I don't understand how you can not put out a game for like 6 or 7 years ever and can maintain that many employees.
The stakes you're playing with when it comes to that genre, it's if you want to make a world-class game in that field, like you have to have all those artists. You have to have all that, there's so much content that has to be generated. And that's why it's such a sketchy business. And it's like the decisions to get into that space were made when that space was completely fucking different.
We're talking 6 or 7 years ago. Like, it is a long time where these decisions made probably a lot more sense when
like World of Warcraft, you can look at it and go, let's make something like that.
Right. World of Warcraft would have been like 3 years old at most back when they first kicked that off.
I think they first kicked that studio off in like late 2006.
Yeah.
So,
whereas they could have gone, something like what. We'll see if Runic Games ever actually makes good on it, but like Torchlight, was kind of conceived from the beginning, like we can make an MMO out of this, but we're going to work towards that.
Right.
We put out Torchlight 1, 2, we're going to establish this universe, we're going to establish that people like the style of gameplay, and then if it's successful, then we'll make an MMO out about it. And they just went the opposite direction and then realized like halfway through, shit, we need to establish this universe. This game's not coming out for this amount of time, and it's out of the whole thing. Other than how you feel bad for the employees that had nothing to do with the bad managerial problems, is like big, huge games got like kind of totally fucked.
Yeah.
But if they had not got bought, they probably would have gotten fucked like a year earlier, right?
So they got to make that RPG that they said they wanted to.
The day all that shit went down, tweeted Kurt directly and said, like, thank you for allowing us to make our dream project.
And I think that's totally true. Yeah. It's just too bad that they made this game. We're this close to. Basically, it sounds like EA was scared off because of the problems at 38 at large, and that they were ready to go make the sequel. And
Schilling's thing was specifically what the governor said scared a lot. Like basically, all the public statements from Governor Chaffee was what scared away EA, and that's what they're pissed about. Is that he's going around and talking all this shit.
That makes sense. If I was getting ready to cut a check to a company that. The government was saying, like, these guys, I don't know, we're going to try and help them, but they seem pretty fucked. Like, it'd be like, oh, well, maybe we should, spend this money somewhere else.
And that's like the inherent disconnect is, talking about Amalur, it's like, Kurt Schilling's going around talking about how this, his game's a great success. It exceeded expectations, sold 1.2 million copies. But like that's because the game was there to establish the universe versus like turning a profit immediately.
Yeah.
Whereas on Chaffee's side, he's looking at it as like, well, this didn't sell enough money, copies to make its money back, so it's an abject failure. Is literally what he called it, and that's.
Well, that's just he just doesn't understand how the video game business works in that case. Because
putting those statements out in public like that is really damaging to a brand and a studio.
But they were also a company that had no private financing, took all their money from the government, and from a guy who shit on people that ask for money from the government after there was a whole again the whole drama of this. There's enough blame to go around.
So now Schilling is saying like all of his $50 million that he had saved from playing baseball went into this company. Like he has basically very little personal capital left because of everything he's now sank into this company.
He also they're getting audited. They're going to try and sell these assets. Like he's got to kind of play the last card he has left, which is trying to hope maybe a company like an EA or someone that has an infrastructure to put out an MMO, like theoretically, someone could take this to the finish line and actually release this game.
Could they?
I don't. We don't.
You would have to hire. You would probably have to hire a lot of that team to finish it because you imagine they've been working on this project for X number of years. Like talking to our engineers and stuff like that about that sort of stuff, you can't just walk in and pick up someone else's code and know exactly what it does.
No, they did it to Hellgate.
Not on day one. That doesn't mean you can't ever get it done.
Yeah, I guess.
But how many of those employees are going to be left?
I'm not saying they're going to pick them up. I'm saying there's a scenario where like there's someone that buys the IP, buys the assets, and then you truck all the resources overseas, and you just get people to finish as much out of what they already created. It's just there's enough money invested that I bet there's somebody that could. I think it was like Pachter or someone that like valued it like the assets at like $35-40 million, and like
I kept reading like 20.
It's not that. It's probably not that much money, given the return on investment could be. All right. It looked like a good looking game. Like, I don't know.
Yeah,
I don't know how the mechanics were, but the art looked pretty astounding.
Cool.
And I don't really care for fantasy art, but they had a real unique look to it.
Hard to accomplish, but like those shots kind of.
It had its own voice.
Implied exactly a
There's
very
probably
specific,
a
unique
book
aesthetic.
in all this.
Yeah.
If you think about it.
And this and the Infinity Ward stuff.
Yeah. It's like a man who played baseball and spent all his nights playing EverQuest decided to make his run for it. And then, exactly.
I mean, that's the really. I mean, look, the real tragedy obviously is all the people who are out of work. But I mean, the angle now that Schilling is playing up is that like this was his dream. This was his big dream to do this.
That was the play from the beginning. But
now especially,
he was like, I actually play a lot of games.
Yeah.
I love EverQuest. What if we made something like that? That'd be rad, right?
Yeah.
And then put a bunch of money and started a company. I guess.
And then everyone else said, "No, Kurt.
No, Kurt.
No, it wouldn't be." After they let him think that it would be.
I don't know. Yeah.
When it starts to get really dark when you hear about all the
that's
like
that's the stuff.
Basically that this is Kurt level, but who knows exactly how the decisions were played out. But to not let employees know like sort of the status of the company, so that when everything did go under. You have these news of people having these double mortgages that are suddenly laid at their feet. That
like unexpected termination of health benefits.
With babies due. That week.
Like you knew,
and that's how they found out, right?
I think so.
Yeah, it was one of the employees went to. His wife went to go get a checkup, and they were told, by the way, your health care is running out this coming Thursday. Like
beyond fucked.
That's just evil and dark and. Maybe at one point there was a rationale of, well, we want to shield employees. We want them to keep working on the game. But at some point, you're just
kind of honor bound to not fuck people over.
Yeah.
Especially if you're going to come out and say that we tried to run the studio like a family. It's like, right up until the point where you didn't.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
I read some speculation about people in management in that kind of scenario just sort of being paralyzed by a sort of delusion.
Oh, sure.
Or like just like a state of such denial that it leads you to like just kind of like catatonic inaction, where it's just like you've dug yourself in so deep that you can't do anything about it, and you just like kind of sit there and just let it wash over you.
Yeah.
Instead of like telling the people whose lives are going to be affected about it.
Right, because you can imagine how this is going to take care of itself. Right. I tell everyone the doomsday scenario when we're going to figure it out, but then at some point it's like, well, I don't want to take ownership of this. Like, who wants to do that? And, maybe that falls to Kurt, maybe it doesn't, but it's a real sad situation all around.
Yeah, sucks.
God, just being told, all right, surprise, in addition to not having a job, you now have a second mortgage payment and no health insurance.
And you're in Rhode Island. It's not like there are...
Did that housing stuff turn out to be true? Because I'd heard the thing that, like, they had agreed... there's a rumor going on they had agreed to take over some of the old mortgages of some of the high-level employees so that they can move to Rhode Island.
It sounded like there was at least some truth to that. I don't know how
nobody ever
widespread
confirmed
it
as far as I could tell. But
that's the mortgage thing to me is the one that when I saw that I was like, that's
got to be a nightmare if that actually happened.
That's like straight up criminal.
Yeah,
if that is being done.
There is actually there's I forget what they're maybe in violation of, but it sounds like
they're the Warren Act.
The Warren Act, which is basically like if there is a mass layoff. Mass layoffs don't just happen overnight. They happen as a result of, at some point the money runs out, but you knew the money was going to run out. It's not like the money disappears from a vault.
Yeah.
And so they may be in violation of having not informed their employees, hey, in the next 60 days, we may run out of money due to lack of private equity.
That's why they're being audited.
If you want to make plans, prior to us getting the funding.
I don't know what the act reads like, but I would imagine the first time they missed payroll, like at the beginning of May or something, that might have served as a pretty clear indicator, like, hey, you guys might want to find a place where you can get money.
That's pretty cold comfort.
Yeah.
Honestly,
right.
I don't think that. I don't think that is adequate in any way.
The only comfort in any of this is the way people have sort of come together and like put these job lists together and like trying to help people out. Like that's the only positive that has come out of any of this shit. So.
Well, and also,
I hope Boston can reabsorb. I hope the outlying areas can reabsorb the talent that's fallen out of there, because that's 300 odd people. That's a lot of fucking staff to be out on their asses like that.
It doesn't seem like they'll be able to go to Austin because they
BioWare, right?
BioWare cut some of their Old Republic guys.
Like the same day, right?
It was around the same week.
Right,
I don't know if
it
it
was
was
around
the
the
same
same time.
Yeah. Restructuring, transitioning from development to the live game. That old chestnut.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, MMO's a rough fucking business.
Yeah.
Like that's
especially now.
Especially now. And I think when you hear the story originally of this baseball player is going to make this game, like it sounded fucking crazy at the time, and it sounded crazy all the way through. But it was one of those things where it's sounds like they got a bunch of names over there, and they picked up this other studio.
It seemed like they were
they might
serious about
it. They might actually pull this off. So
it was not like as you referenced, the Seth Green Master P.
No.
Yeah.
Hip hop MMO or wherever the fuck that was supposed to be.
Yeah.
The Rhode
That's still
Island,
coming. Don't worry about it.
The Rhode Island thing, when that first came out, that a lot of people that I've talked to have said that was kind of a clear indication that something wasn't right. If like they're really willing to just relocate the entire studio and just to get these tax breaks and to get this loan and stuff, there's something not right there.
They had trouble getting any kind of private funding.
Yeah. I guess the hoops that were jumped through just to get the Rhode Island Bucks.
And not announcing the game and all, waiting this huge amount of time to even give it a name. And
that part's
hey, you think it was going to be called Kingdoms of Amalur?
Possibly.
How did they not have a publisher at that point?
They had gone around. I mean, whatever. Kurt Schilling is a guy that can get a meeting with executives.
Right.
You say, hey, this famous baseball player wants to meet you. You say, abso-fucking-lutely. So you have to imagine he was able to get into any studio he chose, and was not able to come out of there with a publisher or money.
Did you see the story on, was it on Boston.com that chronicled the series of meetings he had with the governor after they missed the payment before the studio closure, where he went in there and was given the opportunity to pitch why they should get more money? And his demeanor was characterized as very different from like his usual kind of effusive self. Like he's generally a really exuberant guy, like really enthusiastic.
Yeah, super earnest. Like that's why whenever you meet him and he talks about the game, like it's just like, hell, I hope this works out for you. Because like you're in a position to make your dream come true. Who wouldn't want to do that if they could pull the trigger?
I don't know who gave these comments. I mean, maybe somebody in the governor's office or whoever, but they described him as being very downtrodden and not convincing in the slightest about why they should receive more funding. And I wonder what is the story there.
I mean, it sounds like they had been going. The way that interview with Schilling went, it sounded like they had known since mid-April that there were serious issues coming up with money, and that like I imagine that he's probably been. I mean, the way they described it, he's lost like 40 pounds over the last month, and he's just isn't sleeping. Like I imagine he's just so burnt out by trying to like get this capital going and like trying to deal with the Rhode Island government and all this shit that like He's probably just fucking broken.
It's just crazy to think that, because we've seen firsthand how enthusiastic he can be about this stuff.
Yeah,
like when it came down to it, and this was the make or break moment, like that he didn't get in there and give 110% to make sure this thing kept going.
The bloody sock moment is no longer there.
He grooved one and they knocked it out of the park. Is that what you want? Is that what we want, this baseball closure?
If it happened as that story said it did.
Or maybe there's just no private money for MMOs. Like,
right. Who would invest in that sector right now?
If Star Wars is struggling, which is the biggest IP you could attach to something like that, and they put $200 million behind that, however much money in marketing.
One of the biggest names in game development.
Yeah, BioWare. Like you that in terms of a formula. Like you put in all of the best things into that equation, and that game is just doing all right because the genre has stagnated to the point of hopefully Blizzard does something new with it.
That's the one thing they didn't put in. Was a game that did something radically different.
Yeah.
And you can anyone that looks at Project Copernicus and Kings of Amalur, which did respectably for a brand new IP that was an action RPG, it's like, who's gonna buy this game?
Right.
Like
Kurt Schilling. He was just making the game that he wanted to buy, and
it looked like it could have been kind of cool.
Yeah.
Hopefully we'll see more of it if it doesn't get bought. I mean, there's a lot of assets on people's hard drives. I'd like to see some of that stuff.
I'm sure there'll be a bunch of reels as people go out there looking for, keep on looking for work and whatever.
Mostly
they're
curious
going
to
to
see
do
what kind of the gameplay was like.
Right.
Like, did it break that mold?
Yeah.
Of all the other
had they
games.
even gotten that far yet? I mean, it's like how much of that was really done?
There wasn't everything. Some of the stuff I've heard and read suggests that they were pretty close to the friends and family beta period. Yeah. So they certainly had to. And if they were realistically or not realistically charting for June, that they had to have had enough mechanics in place that sort of the base gameplay was established, if not balanced.
Yeah.
But,
God.
Well, best of luck to all former 38 Studios employees. I know that there have been and probably will continue to be a lot of job fairs in the area from sympathetic and local developers. I know Irrational and Harmonix have both done stuff. I want to say CCP has done some stuff.
Turbine already did something.
Yeah. Turbine did something. Bethesda's not far from there either.
Yeah.
I don't know if they're planning anything, but there's...
I wonder if they're looking at like Elder Scrolls Online now and going like, we've been in development for a real long time too.
and the reaction to that game has been poor.
Right.
Yeah.
Like when people are not super excited about what's going on. I mean, to the point that they put out a follow-up interview with Game Informer just distancing themselves from the Hero Engine.
Right, yeah.
Do you see that?
Yeah, well, I didn't see
where
it.
It's not actually based on the Hero Engine, or I didn't quite understand the...
Well, Hero Engine is the engine of Old Republic.
Yes.
So
they were out there saying this was a newer version of it,
right?
Or like the
newer version, and also
they've or something.
They've done more to it. I don't know what I didn't actually read the interview, but that's...
It's at the point that's some of the initial spin you have to start giving to your game, and the reaction like that's just... You were starting off on a bad foot, and then
I can understand the desperation of some emergency damage control, but like the engine you're running on is not the core problem here. It's how people play the game that they're tired of.
Yeah.
MMOs.
Don't make them.
I'm not gonna.
Or if you are, make them different. Like I mean,
it's like ArenaNet is like what the one developer that seems like they're still kind of at least doing reasonably well with their stuff.
There is so much positive buzz around Guild Wars 2. I can see that doing pretty well.
Yeah, but they also do it in a fairly different way from like a standard MMO.
Yeah, I mean, they're not relying on a monthly fee.
Yeah.
And they sure as hell sold some Guild Wars 1.
Yes, they did.
It is. The time has passed. I was going to say the time is almost upon us, but the time has passed for this industry to just sit down and take a hard goddamn look at what we define as an MMO and what that means and what if anything is still appealing about that.
I was having a conversation with someone who said like, at what point, it might have been you guys, saying like at what point do they just stop using the term MMO because it comes with so much baggage,
right?
That it just creates that negative connotation right away.
Probably now.
Of just like, great, I'll roll another tank, I guess.
I think once you start using those terms, like my eyes just gloss over.
Done.
And like you can assume so much about the game and its structure that whatever little things they do to it are little things. Like it's just like it is a real structural change. Right. Maybe just in terms of what you think the term massive means.
I mean, most of the big complaints about Old Republic were that it was missing features that WoW had. Like make it more like WoW. It's like, I guess. Because, when it comes to that format of game, you want to make it more convenient to get in a group. And, you know, WoW built a perfectly perfect tool for getting into a group. But like if that's the direction that, you know, the fans of the game want it to move in, like make it more like this other thing, it's like, why are you even doing it?
Well, there's just a cap on the amount of people you can attract. Like it's that 10.5 million people that are still playing WoW are probably the same people that cycle onto these new games, and you're not getting, you know, WoW used to be much bigger than that.
Yeah, well, maybe it's just, you know, maybe that's another good case for the free to play model and getting off the monthly fee stuff is that, you know, you can potentially have more people coming through the door at that point, and hopefully more of them will spend some amount of money with you. I don't know.
Right.
I'm real curious to see how Mists of Pandaria does.
Yeah,
because
like, will it actually bring people back?
Well, my impression was
same
that,
way,
I mean, Cataclysm brought people back, but my impression, I don't have any hard figures for this, but my impression was that the drop off was much more rapid.
Yeah. It's like they just got in,
burned
they got through that content, and then said, all right, later.
And they were like, and they were out again.
Yeah.
And I anecdotally, like just playing StarCraft every day, I saw those numbers drop pretty quickly over the next month or two.
Yeah.
Until it was back to the like 1 or 2 people online at a time that I usually see on there.
Yeah. Weird times for that stuff.
So does that just like de facto fall on Blizzard? Does everyone just look to them for whatever their next super secret project is of like, okay, are you guys going to redefine this now or what?
Like,
well, who else?
It doesn't, by necessity, doesn't have to be them. They just seem like the most likely candidate because everybody else has been chasing their money the whole time.
But at the same time, like, you know, you look at what Blizzard has done very well since World of Warcraft. It's make games that were like the games they made before.
You're right.
You know, like, that's not to say there's zero innovation in StarCraft and in Diablo, but they're making comfort food to the video game with that stuff.
Yeah,
but
it's the Nintendo of PC development.
At the same time, all of the top people who made WoW have been on Titan for years at this point.
Right.
They have, and kind of publicly, because they're always saying, "Oh, here's the new like kind of management team on WoW now," because these other guys are doing other stuff.
Right.
And they've been doing that like on an annual basis for years.
Yeah.
So like all their top guys are working on that stuff.
And they keep saying how like, oh, this isn't going to compete with WoW. It's going to be a completely different thing. But like,
rock and roll racing, massively multiplayer, rock and roll racing.
If you're bringing all of your WoW team over to make your non-WoW project, I have to wonder out loud at some point of the effectiveness of that.
You know, I imagine when it comes to the desire to make something that's not WoW, you can't get much better than a bunch of people who made WoW.
That's where I'm coming from with that. Yeah, is that they already did it once.
Yeah,
like everybody else is just now wising up that they can't just make another WoW and make the same money.
Yeah,
those guys, if anybody, are not going to make WoW again because they already did it.
It's not to say that what they will make will be awesome.
Yeah. There's no reason to believe out the gate that it's going to set the world on fire, but at least you can be confident it's going to be something else.
It's a genre ripe for someone to come in and disrupt everything.
Yeah.
Like, just like Call of Duty 4 did to multiplayer shooters. Like,
right. Yeah.
It needs that moment, and I don't think multiplayer shooters got to the same moment that MMOs have gotten to, where it's just now people are actively like just to the genre, whereas Call of Duty came in and just
like shooters were fine up to that point.
Yeah,
it just
took it to a completely different space.
It is a similar case, of somebody just doing it that much better than everybody else.